My daughter-in-law, Han Jung-min, from the big city of Daegu in South Korea, she's very precious to me, and she's been a wonderful addition to our family. She's gotten in the routine for presents from, it was my birthday recently. And she's gotten in the routine of presents for me, of giving me books about Korean cooking and about Korean temple food in particular, the tradition of the kind of foods that are eaten in the temples. Vegan and also excluding certain other kind of some vegetables that the Buddha said you're not supposed to eat, onions and stuff, that are sort of excluded from the diet in the cuisine that's eaten in the Korean temples. So her most recent birthday present for me, it was a fabulous choice. It's a wonderful book. It's got one of the longest book titles I've ever seen on a non-academic book. It looks like a title. It ought to be in something I have in my office at the university. The title of this book is Korean Temple Cooking, The Life and Work of Jongkwan Sunim, Lessons on Life and Buddhism with Recipes. Sounds like from the 1800s or something, a title that long. Since you probably aren't familiar with her, Jongkwan Sunim is Korean female monastic. She's an expert on this tradition of Buddhist temple food. She's become somewhat of a worldwide celebrity. So you might have heard of her because Netflix did a documentary about her just a couple of years ago. So the author of the book, Hunam Silman, who was born in South Korea, but she lives in Switzerland now. And originally this was a German book. It was written in German, and it just recently was translated into English, and a Korean publishing company published it. The last bit of the title, Lessons on Life and Buddhism with Recipes, I think it's an especially appropriate subtitle, I guess you'd say. As I'd say, the book does contain recipes for both life and Buddhism, some of which are useful in the kitchen, and some of them are useful in the rest of the world, because it's not just a collection of recipes. I haven't actually read the whole thing yet, because it's like that thick. It's a really long book. But I hadn't even finished the introduction, and I read a paragraph. I thought, oh, Dharma talk right there. There's a Dharma talk right there in that paragraph, right in the introduction of the book. We're in a season of new beginnings and transformations right now. With the full moon, the most recent full moon on the 31st was the beginning of Ongo, the summer intensive practice period, the period of kyolche, the period of tight practice, the period when we're encouraged to intensify, it gives us this semi-annual opportunity to start again, to renew our commitment to our own spiritual lives, to our practice, to add new practices, to begin again with things that we maybe got lazy about. Just a few minutes ago, we welcomed some new members to our Sangha, and promises were made on all sides to provide support and encouragement to growth and all these sorts of things. And in just a few days, we have 3 of our members who are going to be taking refuge in the 3 jewels of Buddhism and accepting the vows to live according to the precepts, the moral teachings of the Buddha to the best of their ability as human beings, where we all screw up. In the opening of her book, Silman, the author, explains a term that Jongkwan Sunim uses to describe herself as a cook. She's quoted in the introduction to the book as saying, "I am not a professional chef, but rather a suhengja." Now, this Korean word, suhengja, I'd seen the word before. I'd run across it before. I hadn't really seen it well explained. I wasn't quite sure if I understood what it meant. I understand it much better now. And it's a word I think you should know. I think it's a word that will be very useful to you. Suheng means changing one's conduct and everyday habits. Ja, at the end of a word, means the person who does the thing. Someone who does something is a ja. So put that together. Suhengja means a person who makes a commitment to change their conduct and everyday habits. In other words, to adapt a new lifestyle. So Seelman goes on to write, I'm going to read you a little quote here from the book. A new beginning means giving up previous habits and acquiring new ones. Our lives are controlled by our habits, and we must first become aware of them in order to be able to change them. When we have the right insights, habits, behaviors, ways of working, and ways of interacting with others, it's simpler to follow the Buddha's teaching. But even then, it's not easy. It's a lifelong process. Study is important, and meditation just as much so, but right action is key. All synonyms are suhengja, all try to change themselves so that their own lives follow the Buddha's teachings. It's certainly true that reforming ourselves is a lifelong process. There are important milestones that we go through in the process of doing that. Joining a community like this, joining a Buddhist community is definitely such a milestone. Taking refuge in precepts is one of the biggest possible milestones, and one that's something you can only do once. You know, this is like a one-shot deal. This is a single lifetime experience. Higher levels of ordination, as our seminarian Gongdok, I wish he were here tonight, is anticipating, or even further kinds of milestones. These are major transformations in our lives, or I really should say, they should be major transformations in our lives, in our lifestyles. They're opportunities for self-examination, for modifying our habits, behaviors, ways of working, and ways of interacting with others, to quote from that passage I read a minute ago, for the betterment of ourselves, for the betterment of everyone around us, for the betterment of the world, really. But there are other milestones. There are recurring ones, little prods, chances to reset, opportunities to change our path, to get back on the intended path. I mentioned Ango a minute ago, which pairs up with Dong Ango. That's the winter equivalent, right? Ango in the summer, Dong Ango in the wintertime. This intensive practice period. So twice a year we have this opportunity to deepen our spiritual lives, to explore and maybe adopt new spiritual practices that we weren't doing before, to go back and rededicate ourselves to practices that maybe we got kind of lazy about, right? That we sort of slacked off on, and we need to sort of start again and begin anew. So these are reminders that the calendar gives us. This is a twice a year gift from this Korean Buddhist heritage that was brought to us, that this gift that's been given to us. But more essentially, though, every day we wake up on this side of the dirt is an opportunity for a new beginning. Any moment, with every breath, we can just simply decide to be a suhengja, right? We can just simply decide to begin anew, like climbing a mountain. Every step is a rededication, and if we slip down, as we inevitably will, we can always just begin again. We can begin again over and over again, just like meditation. You lose your focus, begin again. Go back to one every time. Go back to one. We're human. We fail. We're lazy sometimes. We disappoint ourselves sometimes, perhaps even more so than we disappoint other people. We disappoint ourselves sometimes. We fall short of our intentions. We don't manage to reach our goals. We make plans. We talk a big game, and then maybe we don't always carry it through. None of those are failures. They're just part of living as imperfect beings in an imperfect world. This is the way it is. We only fail when we give up on ourselves or we give up on each other. So please don't give up on yourself. I will strive to stand by my ordination vows to not give up on you, and together we won't give up on each other, and we can lift each other up. Sungbala Shipshio, may you and all beings manifest enlightenment.